So hello everyone and welcome to Meet the Experts, the first of our postgraduate live online Q&A information sessions. My name is Patrick Cosgrove and I'm the Student Recruitment Officer here at Mary Immaculate College. Tonight I'm joined by Dr. Margaret Nohilly, the Programme Coordinator for the Professional Master of Education for Primary Teaching. And over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll run through the programme and try answer any questions that you may have. If you do have a question, please type it into the Q&A and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So don't forget to do that over the course of the next half an hour, 45 minutes. So just to maybe start off, Mags, we might, before we get into the specifics, we might just get you to give a very kind of general, brief overview of the Professional Master of Education, exactly what it is, and I suppose what qualification you have at the end of your 2 years.
Great. So thanks very much, Patrick. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being with us. As Pat said, Margaret Nohilly is my name. I coordinate or I'm the programme leader for the PME course in Mary I, and I also lecture in the area of SPHE and wellbeing. So the Professional Master of Education, or the PME, is as it is better known in Mary I, is a 2-year full-time level 9 postgraduate course that qualifies our students to become primary school teachers qualified to teach at all class levels in the primary school, and also indeed in special schools or special classrooms within the mainstream school setting. The course has a very good mix of theory and practice. So in addition to learning all around your curricular areas and preparing to teach those in schools, combined with the foundation modules of philosophy, sociology, history, psychology, policy of education, we also have a number of school placements that our students undertake across the 2-year programme. Some of those school placements are sourced by the college, and then others are self-sourced. And I think, what's really important to say as well is I don't think there is a PME graduate from the course who has ever said they have left the course without making friends for life, because it is, a relatively small course. Up to 120 places are available this year. You're dealing with a cohort of students who have a common aim, a common goal, lots of common interests, and there is a really, really tight friendships, really good camaraderie, really good social support formed within the PME cohort. And it's not to say that you don't get to know the students from the other courses, but there is that real sense of collegiality among the PME cohort, which is always lovely to see and something that the students comment on so positively. It is an intense course and a busy course, obviously, given the fact that you are completing all of the steps to become a qualified primary school teacher in 2 years. But nevertheless, there is a very clear goal in mind at the end of the course. So if that's okay, Patrick, that's just a brief sense of the course. And if people would like to start dropping their questions into the chat box, we will answer them as we go along.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe just to get us rolling, that was a very good overview of the program, Mags. I suppose a lot of people tonight who might be listening to us, they may be in the process of applying for the PME, and then just for everyone, the deadline is the 8th of April. But I suppose if you're coming from just finishing an undergraduate degree, Mags, is there any kind of advice you'd give to someone who's starting a master's like the PME? Like, is there much difference between undergraduate and postgraduate?
Be honest, Pat, I think what students would find is actually the biggest difference is the amount of hours of study they have in the college per week. So, like, the course is quite practical in nature, and obviously it is because it's orienting you to become a primary school teacher. So you might find, for example, one of your assignments could be to develop some resources or a scheme of work to support you for a forthcoming school placement or an upcoming school placement. But in an undergraduate course, you might have, for example, 8 to 10 hours of lectures per week. A typical semester in PME, there are between 20 and 25 contact hours a week face to face. So I think that is a big difference for students. And really, you've got to expect that lectures run from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Thursday and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on a Friday. Now, obviously, you don't have lectures all day, every day, but they are the hours within which lectures can take place. So that can sometimes be, I think, just it's just a new routine that students need to get used to, Pat. So that's a really good question.
Yeah, so I suppose it is a little bit different maybe to what they might have experienced in their undergraduate degree. Just maybe in terms of some of the kind of entry requirements and what you need to do kind of beforehand, before applying. As part of the entry requirements, Mags, people have to do an oral Irish exam called a TEG exam. Would you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so TEG stands for Tastas Europach na and basically it is a requirement for entry to Mary I that students have achieved the minimum requirement in TEG. There are a number of different examinations you can take, but that you have achieved the minimum entry requirement depending on the level that you're taking, and that you have that result to process to the college with your application form. Because I know, for example, there is another TEG exam coming up in May, but it is a requirement of Mary I that you have your result of your TEG and that you've achieved the minimum requirement, whether it be 65% or 50%, depending on the level, as a like that's a term of or a term and condition of entry. And when you apply for TEG, your cert is valid for 2 years. So let's say, for example, you completed TEG last year and you achieved the required mark. That certificate is valid for this year also. And
Okay, I
all of
suppose,
the
yeah.
information, sorry, Pat, to cut across you,
Yeah.
all of the information on TEG is available at www.teg.ie. And the really helpful thing about their website is you can translate it into English for yourself. And there is a specific section on the Professional Master of Education for primary teaching, because we're not the only institute that require TEG as an entry requirement. So the website really does detail all of the information.
Very good. And of course, you can always look at our own website as well, in the postgraduate section of the MIC website under the Professional Master of Education as well. It is all the entry requirements there if you want to look at it in a little bit more detail.
And to be
So,
honest, Pat, I would be really recommending spending time on our website. And sometimes when you go to a tab on our website on the Professional Master of Education, like, for example, the department entry requirements for this year, you click into that again to download all of the information. So that is very clear on what are alternatives to the traditional Leaving Cert in Irish, English, Maths, for example, what the entry requirements are, what the entry requirements are pre the H4, H3, the updated Leaving Cert system. So really the website, that's where you're going to get your key information.
yeah, I suppose that's very important to keep in mind. We just have a question there from Jack Maggs, and it's to do with the TEG exam. So he says, if you do your TEG exam in May, does that mean you cannot apply for September 2024? So obviously he can't.
No, Jack,
It'll be for
because
the following year.
yeah, you see, the problem is, Jack, that the application form for the application for entry to the September 2024 intake is closing on the 8th of April. And in order to apply, like your application will not be considered like appropriate, or you won't be considered as somebody who can be considered for the program if you fail to apply without the tech completed.
Yeah, and I think the last TEG exam was sometime in February this year, so
That's
it's usually
right.
maybe a month or two before the deadline for application. So I suppose it's just important to really keep an eye on that, especially if you're applying next year. Um, so you just mentioned some of the other entry requirements there, Mags, as well. I suppose, like just for Irish, everyone you need your H4 and you're leaving cert. English and maths, it's an O4 at ordinary level or H7 at a higher level. And obviously you can see that on our website. Also, your undergraduate degree, it has to be a level 8 degree, minimum 2 grade. And I'm correct in saying, Mags, it doesn't matter what that degree is in. We get people from all different backgrounds. different degrees who apply for the course as well.
Absolutely.
So
And I think, Pat,
yeah.
that's the beauty of the course, the diversity. And one of the questions we are commonly asked is one degree looked on more favourably than the other? Absolutely not. And as you're all aware, I'm sure, we're operating off a point system this year. So where there is a distinction in points is if you have a 2-2, 2-1 first class honours degree, there may be a slight distinction in points, but there is no distinction in points for an arts degree as opposed to a social care degree, as opposed to a degree in nursing. There are no distinctions made between one level 8 degree to another.
Yeah, so as you say, you have great diversity in terms of people's backgrounds on the
Mm.
program. So we just have a question here. I think it's from a student in UL, and they're just wondering for the TEG, it's about the application process. They want to know, do we upload a picture of our certificate? Perhaps it'd be best to contact the admissions office there, Mags, with it, and just kind of let them, yeah. So if for anyone, if you're in the process of doing your application or you do have a query on it, the best people to contact are the MIC admissions office. So you can contact them at admissions@mic.ul.ie. We might pop that into the Q&A as well, just in case you want to have a look at it. So I'd advise you to get in touch with them over the coming days if you do have a question. I think we've another one in. This one is from Alana, and
Okay.
Mags, Alana wants to know: is there much demand for the PME this year? Are there written exams as part of the PME? So this was about assessment. We might just take the first part first. So she just wants to know: is there much demand? I suppose we've no way of knowing really yet, because
No, I mean, our PME is a very popular course. Um, I suppose by comparison to years where we would have interviews and Irish exams held here in the college, the TEG examination is preventative, I would imagine, in some ways, as in, if the students don't achieve the 65% or the 50%, it prevents them from applying. But it is a very, very popular course. And we're still nearly, we're nearly 2 weeks off the deadline. And I don't know, but I think traditionally we see a surge of applications towards the end.
yeah, and I think we have 120 places approximately this year again
That's right.
available on the course. So I might just follow on to the second part of Alana's question there. Alana, I suppose, was looking to know about assessment on the PME, Mag. So she's just wondering, are there written exams part of the PME, or is it assignments, or is there practical work? So you might just kind of go into a little bit of detail there about how students on the course are assessed.
Sure. So, in relation to every module a student undertakes is assessed. And typically students would take approximately 9 to 10 different modules per semester. If your module is a school placement module, that module is assessed on your practice in the classroom. There are 5 areas it's assessed on, and your planning and preparation, and your reflective practice on that module. And you are assigned a tutor for that module. So I would see that as being very practical in nature. In terms of your other modules, I think it's very much a combination of theory and practice. A lot of the coursework would be practical in nature. There are some subject areas that are assessed by examinations. So, for example, our current PME ones are in their spring semester. They have 2 examinations and a number of assignments. The assignments are a mixture of portfolio work, project work, schemes of work, essays, critical reflections. And the other system we have, Patrick, is a continuous assessment. Now, this would just be for some modules. So the 100% for the module is carried across both autumn and spring semester of an academic year. So, for example, in SPHE and PE, which is a module I teach the PMEs this semester, we assessed 30% of the module in the first semester, and then we assessed or are assessing the remaining 70% this semester. 30% was due on the 1st of March, and the remaining 40% is due in the coming weeks. So we break the assessments up across the year. And the students really like that method of continuous assessment. It's proving to be very popular because I suppose it helps break up those deadlines or, those kind of gluts that come at the end of semesters, but very much a combination of theory and practice, a combination of formative and summative assessment. And I do think it's important to bear in mind, this is a level 9 course. So the whole area of research methods, and particularly practitioner-based research, which is reflecting on your own classroom practice, is threaded across our program. And that is to be expected at a level 9 course because you are ultimately qualifying with a master's in education.
Yeah, thanks, Max. I think that was an important point just to bear in mind. We have a couple of more questions, and please do, if you have any questions, do just put them into the Q&A function there, and we'll try and put them to Mags. We just have a question here from Sarah, and she's wondering how long would it be until you hear back from the college if you're successful in getting into the program?
So normally, that's a very good question. Normally, it is late June, early July. And the reason that is because there are some students who apply and they're in the last year of their undergraduate degree. And they are offered a place pending their final examination results. And they are sent and processed to the college really immediately from when the student gets those results. But that's actually when it's only at that point the final allocation can be made. But what happens is that all of the colleges, so DCU, Marino, for example, there's an agreed date by which the places are offered from all colleges. Now, Hibernia may be slightly different to that, but that is usually a date in early July.
Okay, thanks for that, Max. Kira then has a question. She wants to know, does the program run through the summer months?
No. So program starts in early September, runs from September to Christmas. In January of the first year, PME students attend the Gaeltacht for 2 weeks, excuse me, but that's between semesters. There are no lectures at that point. Then semester 2 runs from January to May, and that includes a school placement. And then students are largely free from May until the course starts again in September for second year. However, during the summer, the students must attend their second block of 2 weeks in the Gaeltacht ahead of entry into second year. But they can do that, it's not a stipulated 2 weeks. We often find, because the students are such good friends, they'll travel together, maybe in 2 weeks in late August. But if those 2 weeks didn't suit you for whatever reason, you can go to the Gaeltacht once a course is available at a time that suits yourself.
Okay, and you might just elaborate a little bit more on that, Max, about the Gaeltacht placement, how much or how often you do it, and just what exactly, I suppose, are students be expected to do on it, or what's the purpose of it, really?
Okay, so every PME student, regardless of whether Irish is their first language or not, are required to spend 2 blocks of 2 weeks in the Gaeltacht. And the Gaeltacht placements must both be undertaken before the student goes into the second year of the course. The purpose of Tréimhse Falmas Gaeltacht, as it is known on our course, is to enhance and improve the students' Irish, but also to become familiar with, the traditions of the Gaeltacht, life in the Gaeltacht. It may possibly attract students to teach in the Gaeltacht. And really, I suppose that idea by immersing ourselves in a language, that's how we truly learn the language, but that's how we truly experience the language. So the college supports students there are a number of Gaeltachts from Donegal down to Kerry that the college are affiliated with. And one of our lecturers here at the college coordinates the placement. Our students generally, as I say, I found for the last few years, really, the PMEs go off together in January to the Gaeltacht for 2 weeks, and then they go off again during the summer. Now, since the COVID pandemic, the cost of the Gaeltacht has been, it's not The students are not charged for the Gaeltacht. The Department of Education have taken that cost on board for students. Hopefully that will continue, but we only have that guarantee from year to year. So that really is the Gaeltacht experience, Pat. And we often get questions, Irish is my first language. That unfortunately is the requirement. Now, there are, exceptional circumstances maybe where we might have somebody or a couple of people in the PME, they have young children, etc. There can be accommodations made to support people with young families if you want to bring your children down, if your family want to come, down, because it's generally during school holiday time. There are lots of different circumstances for people to go to the Gaeltacht. It's not an option not to go to the Gaeltacht, but there are allowances made in terms of living provision, etc. If it's necessary to do so.
Yeah, I suppose that's good to know anyway, Mags.
Yeah.
And we did have a follow-on question there, I suppose, from Sarah, and I think you kind of answered. She just wanted to know, is the Gaeltacht an extra expense? And I suppose, like you said, at the moment it's not, but it does. We go year by year basically at the moment. Is that correct, Mags?
That's correct. We go year by year. The Gaeltacht was online during the COVID pandemic, but since COVID, the students haven't had to individually pay for the Gaeltacht. Our hope is that that will continue. And then the only expense are really your own living, like your meals are provided, there's no cost for classes. Any socializing or other expense, that's the student's own expense, but that's it.
Okay. So do please drop in any questions that you have into the Q&A and I'll put them to Mags. But you've mentioned school placement already, Mags. So I suppose obviously that's a very important part of the programme. You might just talk a little bit about how much school placement there is, how it's organised, and maybe how it's assessed even as well, if that's appropriate.
Sure. So, we would often say in Mary I that school placement is the fulcrum of all that we do. Because, no matter how much theory we do in practice, we hear this from our PME students, our BEd students, nearly every student that has ever walked into Mary I, the relearning takes place out on the ground and in the classrooms. So in the first semester we have 3 school placements on the PME programme. The first placement is a 2-week partnered placement. So you're partnered with somebody in the college. The college organise the partnerships, and they organise the partnerships based on, geographical location to schools, all of that type of thing. That is generally sourced by the college, that placement. So it's a 2-week placement in a school, in a class from 1st class to 4th, largely sourced by the college. And at that point, the only subjects that you teach are the subjects that you have been learning about across the semester. So if there's a subject you haven't undertaken, you're not expected to teach it. The second placement takes place in April, May of first year. It is a 5-week placement and you are on your own, and it's in a class from 3rd to 6th. I should have said, Pat, excuse me, the first placement is a pass-fail module. Okay. The second placement is a graded placement. So like any module, it's graded from A1 down. And then the third placement is a 12-week placement in a school. Normally we find it's not necessary, but the student will return to their home for that placement. So we actually often find in the last semester of the course, students don't, if they're not from Limerick or they're living too far away to commute, they don't rent accommodation for the last semester. Most of them live at home and they undertake their extended school placement, as it's called, in a school that's known to them or that's close to home. And again, that's an individual placement. You undertake strand work in with special education needs teachers, and there are 2 teaching blocks across the 12 weeks, one in a class from 1st to 6th and one in either junior or senior infants, or a combined junior and senior infants. And that is a graded placement again. And we work off a credit system in Mary I. So there are 120 credits on the PME programme. There is a significant portion of those credits assigned to school placement, because it's such, it's a very important part of what we do. So that's a very rough overview, Pat, or a brief summary of how school placement is organised. We have a dedicated school placement team in the college. All of our staff in the Faculty of Education work as tutors on school placement, and then we have a number of part-time tutors. They may be retired principals, teachers on career break, and they also support us with school placement. So that's how school placement operates. Huge part of the work we undertake in the college.
Yeah, it's obviously a very important part of the program. We have a few questions in now, Mag. So Riona, she wants to know, she's just referring back to the application under the referees section. What is relevant? The principal from co-op placement, work experience, volunteer work?
So like under the referees section, I ultimately think, somebody in a professional capacity who is not, known to you personally or related to you. Obviously, they're known to you, but, that there would be no conflict of interest, are appropriate as a referee. So you might consider the principal of a primary or secondary school you went to yourself, like you say, somebody you've worked within co-op, if you volunteer in an organisation, if you work with children in some capacity, they would be obvious examples of suitable referees to choose.
Okay. And we have another question then from Sarah. And Sarah just wants to know, due to the points system, is there a minimum amount of points needed?
So in terms of your undergraduate degree, the point system starts there. So I have it here printed in front of me. There's updated information for this year, a 4-page document on the points system. And this information is provided to Mary I by the Department of Education. Okay. So the minimum points that you would be allocated for your undergraduate degree is 37, but they don't. And obviously, then you can there are different categories then for full-time paid experience, part-time experience, sustained voluntary work, but there isn't a minimum cutoff number of points awarded. I think what they look at more so is, do you meet the minimum requirement in each area? As in, have you met the TEG requirement? Have you met the undergraduate requirement? And take it from there then. I haven't been involved, nor will I be involved in the scoring system, but that is my understanding based on the information provided.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Mags. And of course, if anyone does have any questions or wants to check that out more, you can just go to our website and look up the Professional Masters of Education, or you can always contact the MIC admissions office, and their email address is admissions@mic.ul.ie.
And I
So,
think the big thing, Pat, is like, don't be making an adjudication yourself. I wonder, is this voluntary experience worth including or not? If you have the experience, include it on your application, and then leave the adjudicating to the adjudication panel. That would be my way of approaching it. Like, they're very clear on what the points are for. It's full-time paid professional experience, part-time paid professional experience, and sustained voluntary work. So if you've got those experiences, I wouldn't be saying, oh, they won't think this is valid, they won't think that's valid. I would include the information, and that is the job of the team that are appointed to review the applications.
Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose if in doubt, put it in anyway is probably the best advice. Yeah. few other areas then maybe just to focus on, and if you do have any questions, anyone, please do drop them into the Q&A. Sometimes people, Mags, they often wonder what the difference is between the undergraduate Bachelor of Education and the PME. And I suppose, do people kind of see it as a condensed version of the undergraduate degree? Would you maybe kind of tease that out a little bit?
Okay, well, I think the first and most important thing to say is, I'm out in schools, as are my colleagues, all of the time, meeting principals and thanking principals and teachers for their ongoing commitment and work with our students. There is never a distinction made between a student who's a PME or a BEd. It's really how you undertake your duties in the school and how the school see that, you're committed, you're working hard, you're flexible. The school are seeing you in action every day. The difference in practice is you don't get as many modules of everything as you would on the BEd program. So for example, there would be extra modules in certain areas on the BEd program. And the other thing our BEd students do is they undertake a specialism in a certain area of their choice, or where supply, there may be situations where they don't get their first choice, they get their second choice. But we offer specialisms in SPHE, PE, music, etc. We don't undertake a specialism in an area of education in the BEd program. But there is no module that the BEd students experience in terms of subject areas and the theory areas that is not explored by a PME. But it is just, it's a more condensed version. And there is a module that our BEd students undertake in third year called an alternative educational experience, where they spend 2 weeks in a setting that is not a mainstream classroom. So for example, but it must be related to education. Could be a special school, a special classroom. We don't undertake that process in the PME. So there are some of the practical differences, but none of the differences make you any less of an effective teacher. And most especially out in the system, there is no principal saying a BEd student is more qualified to undertake this program than a PME, and everybody who graduates, no matter whether they've been 4 years in the program or 2, you learn by experience. When I started teaching and I did the 3-year BEd in Mary I taught second class in my first year out, and I taught second class in my second year out. I have often said, I'd love to get that first, second class and get another run at it. I learned so much in that first year. And I'm not saying I did a bad job, but I definitely did a better job the second time round. And, you really, really learn on the job. And there's very much, a trajectory in teaching. But, there is no distinction made between the programs. So I hope that helped answer that question.
Yeah, no, I think you've made it very clear the difference between the undergraduate Bachelor of Education and the postgraduate Masters there, Mags. Maybe just another question on assessment, Mags. I suppose a lot of people, when they're thinking of primary teaching, some of them might think that it's almost like they're going to be studying the subject Irish, English, and maths, almost like they're doing maybe like an arts degree kind of type way of looking at it, but it's obviously quite different to that. And there's obviously education modules as well. So just kind of in terms of what you're studying, what should people expect?
So essentially what you're studying in a subject area is how to teach that subject area to children from infants right through to 6th class, to differentiate that subject area for children at so many different levels. You might have children with physical needs, children with cognitive needs, children with emotional needs. Differentiation features in every single classroom. And classrooms are such diverse places now. And if you think about, if I asked you, Pat, how did you learn subtraction when you were in primary school, or do you remember?
Don't remember actually, no.
Okay, so some people would say, well, we learned it by, we were regrouping and other people would have learned it by borrowing and paying back tens, etc. Like methods based on research change and develop all of the time. So it's about upskilling you in the methodologies that are most effective to teach the different subject areas. So like learning maths, like when you come into your maths lectures, it's like you'll be learning about the story of five. So you can teach infants the story of five. And, it's a really exciting time at the moment for education because just in March, the primary draft curriculum specifications were launched. And so our curriculum is being updated nationally. And in September 2025, which is the midpoint of your course, we're going to have new curriculum specifications in subject areas. And like qualifying and coming out of college saying, I'm coming out and I'm up to date with these new curriculum areas when this is a big change for teachers, that's going to be a huge support to a school. So and we have a lot of members of staff who are working with the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment to develop those new curriculum documents. So it's a really exciting time for education. And then combined with that, you're learning about the history of education. Psychology is teaching you about, how children learn, the different ways in which they learn. Sociology is preparing you to reflect the diversity of staff room life within your classroom. Modules on special educational needs are obviously helping you to meet the range of needs within a classroom. Modules on assessment are supporting you in being able to assess children using a variety of assessment fora. So they're the types of key learning that are being undertaken, Pat. Like if I take SPHE, I spend my time upskilling the students on the curriculum and the methodologies to teach the curriculum in the primary school classroom.
Okay, no, that all makes sense, Max. We've about 5 or so minutes left, folks. So if you do have any questions, do pop them into the Q&A. And we just have one that's come in there from Sarah. She wants to know, does Mary Immaculate College offer student grants?
So there are grants available. There are like the most common grant that the students on the PME program would avail of is the Susie grant. But there is a section, Pat, on the website. I think it's under current students. And there's a full section there on the grants that are available to students, etc. And the other thing that we have in the college is we have an excellent access and disability office. And, if students come into our course with different learning, different physical needs, there are accommodations made by the college to support those needs. They obviously will require the paperwork from you, but we have many students and it's very confidential, but there would be a range of accommodations made from, to accommodate them in undertaking their examinations in a manner that's, most suitable to them. They might be allocated additional time. They might be sitting in a room. I know we had a student previously, and she was supported in with her school placement, with the physical getting to and from school placement every day. Such was her need. So there are lots of supports. We have really, really good range of pastoral counselling supports, student supports. We have one of the counsellors who works specifically with students in our college who are parents. So there's a real range of supports available to students.
Yeah, that's great to know. I suppose there is a wider range of supports there for students, particularly anyone with access or disability issues as well. I suppose just another question maybe to put to you, Mags, there. If you were some people struggle with Irish on the course or they just find it maybe a little bit more difficult. Are there any kind of supports or assistance there if you're just finding the Irish a little bit harder maybe on the programme?
So we do have a Seomra Cadrev in the college. It's an informal setting. It's a place you go for a cup of tea and a chat, a cup of coffee, but all of the conversation there takes place through Irish. When students on the PME program are undertaking their modules to support them in teaching Irish in the classroom, they have a choice. They can undertake the module to support them in teaching Irish in an English medium school, or they can take the module that's on at the same time to support them in teaching Gaeilge in a Gaelscoil or Scoilna Sualteach. And the second thing, Pat, is with Irish, there's Múna na Gaeilge, which is the teaching of Irish, but there is also Gaeilge Garmúil or conversational Irish. Those classes take place in very small numbers. It's groups of 12 to 15. So that really gives a chance for students to develop their conversational Irish. And I think then the onus is on us all, and I include myself in this, I often try to just put the Radio na Gaeltachta on in the car, you know, even just challenge myself to think and speak through Irish, because I find it's a number of years now since I taught in a primary school classroom, and I don't use my Irish as much on a daily basis as I used to. So I really have to, I feel there's a personal onus on me to, just try to engage in those conversations and challenge myself around that a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Just a little follow up on that, Mags. It's a question we often get asked. I suppose some people, once they have their PME done or even their undergraduate degree, they often people ask, can they teach in a Gaelscoil or can they teach in the Gaeltacht? You might just talk a little bit about that. Or, is there any restriction? Let's say they often wonder or ask.
No, I mean, I think two things come into it. The first thing is the student's own confidence and competence around teaching in Irish. And the second thing is then, sometimes it can come down to geographical reasons, etc. But I mean, I certainly know from occasionally I might be asked to observe a student in a Gaelscoil. There's a huge demand for substitute teachers in Gaelscoils and Scoilna Gaeltacht. So what you often find is if students have a real love for the language, or it's something that they've a real vested interest in, they might pursue that. But you are qualified to teach in all primary schools in Ireland. So I think it's a little bit like a special school, Pat.
Yeah.
You kind of make those decisions based on, what you feel you're capable and competent of undertaking.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good advice, Mags. We're coming towards the end of the session here. So maybe final question, Mags, might be just maybe on the college itself. And I suppose Mary Immaculate College is, primarily known for the relaxed atmosphere on campus and the approachability of our staff and our lecturers. So I suppose is there anything, different to Mary Immaculate College, maybe from other colleges, from the campus or anything like that? I suppose, you could maybe say to some of our listeners tonight, if they're thinking of applying to Mary Immaculate College or maybe some other colleges, what could you say about Mary I?
Yeah, I think, it is, Mary I it's a friendly place. It's a place where there is such a level of care shown to students. Um, Staff get to know students well. And it's really interesting, like when you're out visiting a student on school placement, because there's all these experiences in addition to the lectures, you get to know, you build a real relationship with the students. The advantage of the PME is in your small lectures, you're in groups of 30. You really do get to know staff in that way. And I think because the numbers are smaller in the PME, like we've over 450 students undertaking the B.Ed, and then we've students on the B.Ed in psychology, and I think the PME often, because you've had that college experience already, It's probably a smaller setting, but it's a little bit of a more intimate setting. And, there really is a good network of support. Students are very good to each other. I think most people who go into teaching, they want to make a difference. And there's a real ethic of care that underpins teaching. And that ethic of care is very prevalent across the college. And I have to say, we have the loveliest students in Mary I, and I mean that most sincerely. They are so pleasant, so nice, really lovely cohort of students to teach. So it is a really nice place to work.
Yeah, I think that's some great overview there, Mags. One final question just popped into the chat there, Mags, so I'll just put it to you, and it's from Sarah. She wants to know what happens if people who are offered a place pending results don't get the results. Is there additional places offered in late summer?
Yeah, so basically, like it has said it there in the information from the department. Let's say there were 4 people when we reached the cutoff point of 120. There would be a random selection made out of those 4 people for that place. And then there would be a waiting list effectively in order of, those that are closest or with the highest points on that waiting list would be number 1 and below on the waiting list. And then if there was somebody who was offered a place provisionally based on their final results, that place then would go to the person on the waiting list in order of merit.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Mags.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of brings our session to a close. I'd just like to thank Mags for a tour de force there tonight on the Professional Masters of Education. She's given a great overview. The next session in our Meet the Expert series will be on Wednesday, the 10th of April at 6 p.m. And the topic for that session will be Arts and Education Postgraduate Programs, Fees and Funding. So if you're interested in attending that session, you need to register. So just go to the Mary Immaculate College website, mic.ie, and just go to the postgraduate pages there and you'll be able to register for that next session. So thanks very much to Mags again for giving such a wonderful overview tonight, and thanks to everyone who joined us. If you do have any questions, maybe in terms of your application or something like that in the coming days or weeks, the best thing to do is to contact our admissions office. You can email them at admissions@mic.ul.ie, and they'll be happy to get back to you and answer any of your queries. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us this evening, and please do join us again on the 10th of April for our next session in the Meet the Expert series.